My Miami, it's a one-of-a-kind combination of bold, vibrant art, warm waters, and extraordinary trails. It's what I like to call my art-venturous side. This is My Miami. What's yours?
On this season of the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast, we share stories from corporate executives and tips from those who coach them to high performance on what it really takes to build and keep your confidence in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of business, and how they inspire others to lead with confidence. Be ready to take lots of notes because there's always some juicy nuggets coming your way. Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. I'm your host, Alicia Curry, and today's guest is really phenomenal in not just what he shares, but his whole philosophy on confidence. And I'm really excited to dive into that. But before I do, let me share a little bit about Dre Baldwin for you. Dre Baldwin is the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game, who's done 4 TED Talks and has authored 33 books after a 9-year basketball career. Wow. He has a performance and results-based business, and all of his life, this is whether he was in sports, business, or anywhere else, he's focused on performance and results. Mindset is the foundation. This is where we start and end with anything we do. Discipline and consistency, both created by structure and playing the long game, is key to all success. So I said that those were his philosophies. I'm excited to talk to him. So welcome to the show, Dre Baldwin. Hey, Dre.
Hey, Alicia. I am excited to be here, and thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Now, you sent me such an amazing video. No one's ever done that before. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you taking the time to make a video to say, hey, I want to be on the show. So that really warmed my heart. And I'm super, super grateful for that. I want, first of all, as a professional ball player, so you played basketball professionally, but it wasn't an easy road for you getting there. So share with our audience the struggles, just little snippets of the struggles it took for you to get from high school to actually playing professional ball.
Sure. So I played a little bit of every sport. You come up in the neighborhood, you play some kickball in the backyard, touch football, maybe your parents send you to go try out for some teams. So I tried out for some basketball teams, and I was maybe 10, 12, stuff like that, but I wasn't good. I had never played basketball. So naturally, I did not make the teams, and I should not have made those teams. So I didn't play basketball then, and tried a little bit of football, but I never seriously played because I never actually had football equipment. My family couldn't afford the equipment. And then I played a little bit of baseball, but even though I played baseball, I didn't really have that much inclination or talent for baseball. So my ceiling in baseball was like mediocrity. So I finally realized that in my early teens, stopped playing, and then went back to basketball, because where I come from in Philadelphia, in the city, everybody can play basketball. So there was a big playground. There was a field that barely got used. There was a tennis court that nobody used. And there was a basketball court. Everybody was on the basketball.
Yeah.
Right. So all the young men, we went to the basketball court. And the good thing about basketball is you don't need any equipment and you don't need other people. You can play basketball by yourself. Right. And if you got 50 people and one ball, you got a game. So that's why I played basketball. And I was not good at first. When I finally decided I'm going to try basketball, I was age 14, not good. And my high school that I went to at the time did not have a freshman team, nor did it have a junior varsity team. It was just one team, the varsity. So everybody tried out for the varsity. My freshman year, I did not make the team. My sophomore year, I did not make the team. My junior year, I did not make the team. I finally made it as a senior. And that one year, I had the best seat in the house, sitting right on the bench, watching all the games from the front row. And I scored 2 points per game as a senior in high school. So, I like to tell people, Alicia, who don't know sports, if you play soccer or hockey and score 2 points a game, you're in the Hall of Fame. Now, you score 2 points a game in basketball, you're nobody.
You're nobody, right? So
I got out of high school.
Let me ask you a question in between here really quickly, because did you have aspirations of being in the NBA, of playing professional ball while you were in high school? Or was this something that you were kind of, this is what I do, so I'm just going to play ball just to be, athletic or kill time?
It morphed into the first one, morphed into the former. So it was never the latter. I never played a sport like I'm just playing it for fun. I never played
right.
sport.
You didn't play for
fun. As a pro, I never played for fun. I played to win.
To win.
So I always played them, never for fun. And probably by around age 16, Alicia, when I started to feel like I was developing some actual ability and I felt like I was actually becoming good. I hadn't proved anything yet, but I could feel that I was getting better. And that's when I started thinking, hey, I could play in college. Maybe I can play pro. Because when you're 15, 16 years old, you don't really know the realities of the game. You're just thinking about what you can do. You're seeing what you're doing against the people in your environment. And you're saying, okay, if I could beat them, I could beat anybody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that was my mindset that was about age 16. So about halfway through high school. I wasn't even on team yet, but I was starting to think that. So getting out of high school, nobody was calling for me to come play at their college, but I knew I was going to college. My mom's an educator, so she was big on, she wanted her kids to go to school. And I have one sister, so she just wanted us to go to college because she dropped out of college because she had kids at age 21. Yeah. So I went to college and I was going to walk on. For those who don't know what that means nobody called you, nobody invited you, nobody knows you. You literally walk in the gym and you try to play your way onto the basketball team, which is what I did. And I was playing at a Division III college. So I did play my way onto the team, but I'm playing at the Division III level, which is not a feeder for the professional ranks.
Right.
Of sports.
Scouts don't come to Division III games. Right.
Right. The pro scouts go to the Division I game. So I played D3, didn't set the world on fire, but I did play, got out of college. And again, I was in the same situation. Nobody was calling on me to play pro basketball. I was just there. I was graduated. I felt like I was good enough to play pro. I was getting better at this point, Alicia. And I felt like I could play pro, but nobody was calling me. And the thing about pro basketball as opposed to college or high school is that in college or high school, you can see, all right, here are all the colleges, here are all the high schools. Let me pick one. Let me go. Here's the tryout process. Pro basketball is not like that. For pro basketball, you have to, you really don't know what's going on. You got to find the person who knows what's going on. And you got somehow, some way got to get them to know that you exist. So my first year out of college, to give everyone a time frame here, this is 2004. I graduated. I worked at a couple of quote unquote regular jobs. I worked as an assistant manager at Foot Locker. I worked as a salesperson at Bally Total Fitness, they're now out of business, but not because of me. I sold a lot of memberships in the summer of 2005. I sold a lot of memberships. So I was the number one salesperson. So in the summer of 2005, I went to this event called an exposure camp. You familiar with those, Alicia?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So an exposure camp is like a job fair, but for athletes. So any athlete who feels like they're good enough for a job playing pro, but you don't have any job offers, you go to an exposure camp to try to expose yourself to the opportunities.
Right.
Now,
okay. That's excellent.
Yeah. So these exist. They were relatively new at that time, but these days they're pretty ubiquitous. These are in the sports world. You'll come to know them. Anyone who's in sports or you're a parent in sports, you'll know about these. Trust me. So that job fair for athletes is a little bit different than a normal job fair in that you don't put on a suit and carry resumes. You actually bring your sneakers and you play.
You go to work. Yeah. Right.
So 200 young men who all felt like they were good enough to play pro ball, but at that time were unsigned free agents. We all showed up to one event and we're playing against each other in front of an audience of decision makers. So these are destination events in the pro basketball world. So all the scouts from all over the world, they come to these events to try to find their next player. So this is a big time opportunity, but at the same time, it's a meat market because you got 200 guys all trying to prove that they're good enough to play pro.
Right. So, with limited spots available.
Oh, absolutely. And very limited spots. So this is a red ocean, as they would say in the marketing world. So I went to that event. It was $250 in cash that I paid at the door because I did not have a bank account or a credit card at this time. And I actually called the event organizers and negotiated with them to pay them in cash at the door. There's no way for me to pay them. And
so wait, hold on. This is really important because you talk about tenacity, you talk about grit, you talk about finding your way to an opportunity, and that's what it takes. You don't just sit back and say, well, nobody called me, nobody invited me, so I'm not going to go. This is what leadership is, though. You're leading yourself through this process, and what you learned as a salesman in negotiating, you call them up and you negotiate. That's not how they do business. So one of my coaches always says, just because it's not how it's been done does not mean they can't do it.
That's right.
So just because they tell you, well, this is our process, we've never done this before. If you don't ask, you don't get. So I just wanted to just presence that with everybody, not just run over this point, because I think this is a huge point of establishing you in your career, because it's not just your skill set as a basketball player that got you on that court. It was your leadership and your ability to think outside the box and say, this is my opportunity. I am getting it. So anyway, keep going.
Yes, 100%. And I appreciate you adding that in. And as a side note here, if you are a customer or a potential customer to a business and you're offering to give them money, usually they will find a way to take your money.
Take your money.
Yeah, they'll find a way to get it. They'll work with you. All right, so anyway, I negotiated with them, pay them $250 in cash. This event was in Orlando, Florida. Now I'm from Philadelphia. So those who don't know the geography, that was about a 19-hour drive. So me and a couple of my teammates, we didn't fly, we drove. We rented a car in Philadelphia, left Friday afternoon from Philly, drove to Orlando overnight. We hopped out of the car at 9 a.m. Saturday morning, which happened to be the starting time of this exposure camp. So I could get away with that at age 23. Couldn't do it now, but I could do it then. Right. So the camp was only 2 days, just Saturday, Sunday. You play 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. That's all you got. And I played pretty well at that event. I got a pretty good scouting report, which is basically a verified third party saying positive things about me. And I still had to be back at work on Monday at Valley Total Fitness. So I had negotiated to get that weekend off. So any of you ever worked in any kind of retail, nobody gets Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. That doesn't happen. So I had to negotiate with my boss to get the weekend off just to go to this event. And he was a guy who had kind of entrepreneurial mindset. So when I told him why I wanted the days off, he kind of commiserated with me and he let me get the days off. Nice. Now I worked like 30 days straight after that to make up for it, but that's a different story. So anyway, I get back to Philly.
You do what you got to do. That's the thing. Right. You do what you got to do.
And I was on commission, so I wanted to work. I needed that money. Yeah. Right. So anyway, I get back to Philly and now I don't have a job yet. I got a good scouting report and I got the footage, but nobody gave me a job offer on the spot, Alicia. So I'm still unemployed. I'm still living in my parents' house. I'm still working at Valley Total Fitness. I started calling. I went on Google, actually. Google, it still existed at this point. It wasn't what it is now, but it existed. And I just Googled basketball agents because I knew the agent would be the go-between. They work in the sports world the same way they work in like literary or entertainment. They're the go-between between the talent and the jobs. So I needed a job. I had the talent, but I did not know how to reach the jobs. So I started Googling basketball agents. Any agent that had a phone number, I called them. If they had an email address, I emailed them. I said, hey, here's who I am.
Again, this is your sales training. Oh, you know how many people are afraid to pick up a phone and call people?
Yes, that's the opportunity right there.
Yeah. People are afraid to pick up the phone and call people. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But I want you to finish your story about building that confidence, because sometimes that phone get pretty heavy when you're calling people to give you an opportunity.
Yeah, because they have people the status,
to buy, right? Because they have, So anyway, go ahead. Yeah, that phone could get pretty heavy.
Right. So any agent that had a phone number, I called them. They had an email address instead. I emailed them and I said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I got. Because at this point now I had some collateral. I had something to show.
Right.
Or all I had was just what I'm saying. And anybody can say anything. You don't know if you should believe them. But now I had some proof. Right. So I reached out to 60 basketball agents. Of those 60, 20 of them said, okay, let me see what you got. And I sent them my scouting report, which was online, and I sent them the footage. Now, this footage, I got to tell you, was not a YouTube link. YouTube did not exist yet.
Yeah.
This was a VHS tape. Y'all remember
VHS?
Yes. VHS. I had a double-decker VCR at home. So all you millennials, Gen Zers who are listening to this don't know what I'm talking about. Ask your parents or Google it. All right, it's a VHS tape and a VCR. All right, just Google those and you'll see.
Yeah, you'll see what
Yeah, I had a double-decker.
Can you believe we've come to that we don't know what a VHS tape and a
right, it's crazy, right? It wasn't even 20 years ago. Right. So I had a double-decker VCR at home and I would make copies.
You could make copies.
I went to this drugstore called Eckerd. I don't know if they even still exist.
No, Eckerds don't exist anymore either.
They're out? Okay, yeah. So they got bought out by somebody. So I went and bought like 10 packs of the blank VHS tapes. And I would make copies of my tape because I didn't want to lose the master tape. So I made copies of the tape. And I bought bubble mailers from Eckerd and I would mail the tapes out to the agents who asked to see my footage. Because again, there's no sending the YouTube link at this point in time. Right. You have to send them the actual video.
Yep.
So I sent that to 20 agents and one agent got back with me and he said, I'll represent you.
Wow.
And that was in July of 2005. And about 6 weeks later, he called me and said, Dre, I got a team for you. And that was my first contract in Kaunas, Lithuania in late summer 2005. So that's how I got from high school to playing pro basketball. That's when my career started.
Awesome. And you played for 9 years?
That's right.
In different countries, not just
every place was a different place. So I played in different places every single
team,
time.
And I think that's one of the opportunities that the people miss too. And I'm just talking about pro sports for a second, not leadership, is they think that the NBA is it and there's no other opportunity out there, but there are so many professional teams that are not just in the United States. I know some people listen to this from all over the world. So just, keep your options open, keep your mind open. Even if you're in business, there are opportunities outside your direct vicinity that you have to be open to looking outside of where you are for the opportunity. So
100%. And there are more jobs overseas than there are in the NBA.
Oh, wow. Yep. Yeah. It's a big wide world out there. So,
that's right.
So you may not have made one of the teams that you wanted to in your hometown, but there's opportunity everywhere to play pro sports. Sports. All right. So let's switch to confidence, because that's one of the main topics that you talk about. So you started making YouTube videos because YouTube now exists, and you started making YouTube videos about your game, about the game of basketball. And then you realized an opportunity in there because people started asking you other questions. So that's really cool. And now you have this huge empire of books and videos and all this stuff out there. But what gave you the confidence, first of all, to leave your home, leave Philadelphia, leave everything you know, to go play in a different country?
Oh, well, I never even considered that I needed confidence to do that. I wanted to get out of my home. I wanted to get out of Philadelphia.
I think we have that in common, because people ask me that too, because I'm not originally from the United States, but I live here. Been here for over 30 years. But the thing is, they were like, how did you be confident enough to leave home? I'm like, I don't need confidence for that. I just left. Saw an opportunity and left. So, but in being in another country, speaking a different language, you do need some level of confidence for that, to be able to now acclimate yourself, because you didn't speak the language. So what did you do for that?
So, well, the good thing about the world that we're in today, by around that point, by about 2005, the younger generation, so people who are around, I was 23 years of age first time I left the country. The people who are around my age, they had grown up speaking English because they were watching TV, they're listening to rap music. They know so much about our culture here in the United States, so they spoke English fluently.
Good.
If you weren't in another country, you wouldn't even know they weren't. Yeah, you wouldn't even know they were from another country unless you were there. So most of them spoke English fluently. Now the older people, let's say people maybe my parents' age at that time, did not speak English. But nowadays, I would say a big majority, and many of the modernized countries you will go to outside of USA, they all speak English because they're all following our culture. Our sports, our music, they're following all that stuff. So they speak English as if they've grown up with it.
So you never had a problem with that. All right. So really, no. You talk about 4 principles. Share those 4 principles with us.
Sure. So those came from me talking to the athletes when I was making the YouTube videos, and they just saw that I was really consistent. And I would tell them a little bit of my story in the comments, because I always replied to comments. So they would ask me stuff like, Dre, why do you come to the gym every day to work out? So I started talking about discipline. That was the first principle. Then they would ask, well, how do you get the mindset to perform under the lights, as we say in sports? So it's one thing to play in practice when nobody's watching, another thing to do it in a game when everybody's watching. So that's when I started talking about confidence. And the third one was, well, Dre, just this little bit of story I've shared with you here, Alicia. Like, you got cut from your high school team 3 times. You walked on to play Division III college. Nobody would expect someone with that background to play pro basketball. How'd you keep the vision alive in your mind that you could even do it? Why'd you even try? Like, why'd you keep trying despite all these signs from the real world that said this ain't happening? Why'd you keep trying?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I started talking about mental toughness. That was the third principle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would get basketball players asking me, well, Dre, I want to play overseas too. But the overseas world is not like, it's not like getting into college where you can go online and Google the information. Overseas it's a very shadowy industry, even to this day. You don't quite know exactly what to do or how to do it. You got to know somebody who knows something to figure it out. So they would ask, how do you get started? Or then because now I started to have a little buzz to my name on the internet. Now putting content on the internet was starting to become normal. It was starting to become cool. Now you got kids growing up. They don't want to be a firefighter or a police officer. They want to be a YouTuber. So
right. Yes.
now I have a following on YouTube. So now people are like, well, Dre, how can I get known on YouTube? How can I get known on the internet? So I started talking about personal initiative, how to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen, which is something you pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
So these became the 4 principles of working on your game, because when I started talking about them, Alicia, I was only talking to athletes. So at this point, 99% of my audience was just basketball players trying to play in college or play in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started putting these messages out for athletes, people who didn't play sports started hearing them.
So because these are leadership principles.
Right.
They're not just right.
Right. I didn't know that. I wasn't thinking it that way. I was just thinking, I'm just telling athletes.
Because you were in the game. You were so much in the game. You weren't thinking business or leadership or anything like that. So, yeah.
That's right. Because I was still playing at this time. So I was just telling the athletes how I thought. I thought this was normal. I didn't think it was anything
special or different.
Yeah. I thought everybody thought like this. So when I started putting it out there, people started saying like, man, Dre, you sound like a philosopher. You sound like a college professor. And I was like, y'all don't think like this? Like, this is not normal to y'all. So then I realized there was an opportunity there, because people who didn't play sports started coming in and saying, Dre, I don't even play basketball. You know, my son was watching your video and I overheard what you said. You know, that's what people would say to me. And they would say, man, this stuff applies to everybody, even who don't play sports. So that's what told me, because I always had it in my mind, Alicia, like after I get done playing ball every day, I'm not going to be that guy to the ball players. Like they're not going to know me. Like some 16-year-old kid who plays ball today probably has never heard of me because I'm not actively in the basketball space.
Right.
So I said, who will I be when I get done playing basketball? Who can I reach and how? So this gave me the segue. The mindset stuff was the segue between the athletes and the non-athletes. So I already had this in my mind while I was still playing. And I played for another 5 years after I started with the mindset stuff. So when I stopped playing, I knew exactly what I was going to do.
Wow. That's really impressive. And what's even more impressive about it is you didn't, because people think you have to have it all figured out before you get started, right? So you didn't have it all figured out. You kind of saw opportunities, took the opportunities or made the opportunity happen for you, and then continued to have a vision for new opportunities for yourself. You weren't the guy that was just going to play until you were 35, 40, and someone tell you, listen, you need to get off the court. Okay. You need to retire. You weren't that guy. You were the guy that was like, where's the next opportunity while I'm in this thing and I'm enjoying it and I'm working as hard as I can in here. Where's my next opportunity? And that is rare. That is rare for people to really see opportunities outside of where they currently are. So
right. So there's a couple of things with that. Number one is, in the athletic world, the saying is, Alicia, sometimes you're the last person to realize your career is over. All right. So sometimes the phone is just not ringing and you finally get the message, okay, this is over. It's time for me to move on. So for me, the thing that made me a little bit different from most athletes is that I came from a Division III college and I had to hustle just to get my first opportunity. Whereas a lot of athletes, the normal pros who come from the Division I level, they get out of college and their phone's ringing. They're choosing amongst opportunities and they keep playing until sometimes they get to choose and sometimes their career just ends on its own, but there's a steady flow of opportunity when they get into the game. That wasn't like that for me. So even from my first job opportunity, I was thinking to myself, what if it doesn't happen? What if I don't get job opportunity number 2? What if I don't get season number 3? What if I don't get season number 4? So every year I was thinking I might not get the next job. So who am I and what can I bring to the table just as a man if I don't get another job playing basketball? So I had this on my mind constantly the entire time my career was going. Who am I if this was the last opportunity? My last job was my last job.
Right.
I already had that in my mind the whole time, as opposed to, let's say, Kobe Bryant. He probably wasn't thinking about that till he got near the end of his career. Right. So he didn't have to think about what's next. He was like, this is it. I'm here. but I didn't have that luxury. So I had to be thinking about this from the beginning.
From the start. And a lot of people like to call that a plan B. I don't like to call it a plan B. I think it's more like it's a vision B. It's like more of a vision for who you are and what you want to be known for and how you want to be, how you want to live through the rest of your life. So you have to have a vision for your life, not just for the place that you're in right now. So that's having more vision than just a goal, I guess.
Yes.
So they're different. A vision and a goal are very different.
That's right. And at the same time, Alicia, we got to remember athletic careers are short. Right?
They're short,
you make it to age 30 playing a professional sport, you are in the minority of professional athletes. So NBA career, basketball career is like 4.5 years. That's the longest one. Football is like 3 years. Maybe baseball's the longest, maybe 5-ish. But so you start playing when you're 22. By 30, most pro athletes are done.
So, right.
Yeah. What y'all see?
And your life
TV
is now beginning. You
exactly.
Most people are just coming out of college, figuring themselves out, and then they really start doing what they're doing by 30. That's right. Now your first career is over.
Right. You're already a retiree.
You're 30. Right. You're already washed up. Now, unless you're thinking long range of where's the next place, like you said, who am I and how can I bring value? What can I bring to the table? So that's also leadership. Talk about under the lights. Talk about nerves for the game. How do you help people, athletes, non-athletes? Because you've done 4 TED Talks. So people who ask you, well, how do you speak? How do you stand on that stage and do something different? Because by then you had been accustomed to being on video, being on a basketball court, but you hadn't stood on a TEDx stage. So talk to me a little bit about under the lights, pressure, and how do you overcome those nerves?
So you mean on the professional side?
Professional side first, yes. Let's talk about the professional side.
Yeah. So for me, it was an easy transition for me, honestly. I didn't grow up with a natural gene for public speaking. I remember the first time I spoke in public, the first one I can remember, Alicia, I was in 2nd grade, and I somehow, some way got the idea. I blame my mom for this. I ran for school treasurer in elementary school, and that didn't go well. I don't think I got any votes. I didn't win. And you had to give a little speech, right? For the campaign, you had to give a little speech. I didn't win. And that was my first time speaking in public. But then I did a couple of like little plays in elementary school. That was my public speaking. But then when I got on YouTube, I mean, when I first saw the internet, I was probably in 7th grade. This is back in the 90s, back when we had the AOL CDs that you get in the newspaper. Yeah, so that was my first time on the internet. But as soon as I saw it and I saw what it was, I knew it was for me. I knew I was going to be on the internet. I knew my future was on the computer somehow, some way, even though I was going to play sports. So when things where you could broadcast your own thoughts, like blogging and YouTubing came along, and then social media after that, I naturally took to these because I know how to speak to an audience in a conversational way. Like I could talk to a camera lens the way I'm talking to you right now, and it's no different. It's exactly the same. And I could talk, even you were sitting right here, I could talk to you the exact same way. It's no different for me. It just came naturally to me. So it was made for me. And it just so happens it came about right when I got out of college. So that was just serendipitous. So putting all the videos on YouTube, I already had 1,000 videos on YouTube when I did my first TED Talk. So I was never nervous speaking to an audience. And I remember when I tried to get into professional speaking, I would reach out to people, I would cold call. And I remember a woman said to me, because I said, hey, I got all these videos on YouTube. And she was like, well, speaking on YouTube is different from standing on a stage. And she was right. But at the same time, she didn't know me. And there's no way I could have articulated that to her. But it was nothing to me. So when I did my TED Talks, I was not bothered by being in front of an audience. So I didn't really have to do anything for that because I already knew my message. That's another thing. So when I talk to people about confidence or performance, the number one thing you can do to get ready for a performance is be prepared. Preparation. Yep. That's one of my steps I have 7 steps to audacious confidence. And that is the second step. You have to be prepared. Right. And preparation is the hallmark of the professional. That's what I tell people. A professional is always prepared ahead of time for what they're going to be asked to do. They're never just showing up and figuring it out as they go along. That's what amateurs do. So always being prepared. Every TED Talk I did, all I was doing was basically creating a formalized version of stuff I've been talking about on YouTube for years. So it's not like I was coming up with some brand new idea. I was taking the stuff I'd already been doing. And that's how I got the TED Talks. I pitched myself based on, hey, I've been talking about this for years, from athletes to non-athletes. And they said, hey, that sounds good. And let's get on the stage. So it was not new to me. And just being in front of a bunch of people, that didn't bother me either. Because again, I had done it in the sports world. So
how do you share that, that confidence with others, how they can, aside from preparation, how can they remove some of the nerves? Because sometimes you could be prepared and then those nerves hit and you go out there to perform. And let's say as a basketball player, you start, as we say, badunking, you hit the rim and it's not going in. How do you settle with that mental talk? How do you settle those nerves to where you can really settle into your muscle memory and you know your shots are going to go in? Where do you access that?
Good question. So the first thing is, when you're feeling the nerves, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because when you're feeling the nerves and the butterflies, that's your body is telling your mind that it understands you're about to do something important. So it's not you want to change your relationship to those nerves and to those butterflies from a negative to a positive. Like, this is good, because if you're about to go on to do something big and important and you don't feel any kind of nervous, then it might mean you don't quite understand what you're about to do. You're about to do something that is a big deal. So it's okay when you feel the butterflies and the nerves. The thing is the visualization is a big thing. I've always been a visualizer, Alicia, even before I knew what it was, before I knew it was a thing. I'd always visualized my future and my success and my doing things. And that's always been part of my preparation before I even knew I was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, is to get prepared ahead of time mentally. Then it's preparing tangibly, like whatever the thing is that you're going to do. And also getting into the space. If you can get to wherever you're going to go, like you're going to be in a board meeting, can you go in there and feel yourself in the room, be in the room? You're going to go on the stage. Can you go? That's why they have dress rehearsals, right? Get on the stage, right? Nobody in the seats, but get on the stage and picture yourself doing the thing in the exact space where you're going to be doing the thing. That's a thing that a lot of people like to do, and is a big thing. Many people emphasize certain things more than others, but that's a big thing. I like to do that because it helps me visualize. All right, this is what I'm going to do. The only difference now is going to be a bunch of people there, but I'm going to do the exact same thing that I'm doing right now. So that preparation, the discipline of preparation has always been the biggest thing for me. And it's mental, it's physical, it's spiritual, it's emotional. All of those things is getting ready for what's going to happen and seeing yourself doing it before it happens.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yes, absolutely. Because performance, any kind of performance requires that preparation. It requires that visualization. You hear it with track people in track all the time, and you see them in their warm-ups. They're actually like visualizing, you see them making the move. They're standing there and they're doing all the moves because they're like mentally preparing for going around that track, whether it's hurdles or whatever. And so that visualization piece is so important. I remember the first big talk that I did where I was on stage. I did that. I had to do that. I'm like, I had to see myself. So the first thing I did is, what don't you want to happen? It's like, all right, I don't want to get on that stage and walk off that stage feeling disappointed because I knew I had more in me, that I allowed my nerves and my lack of confidence overtake me. And then I start getting fumbly and shaky and stuff. So it's like, okay, I don't want that. So what do I want? And then I started to visualize how I wanted to feel, what I wanted the audience to feel, how I wanted them to experience me on the stage, how I wanted to experience being on the stage, looking out at them. I went through that whole process too. And I did that not the day before, I mentally prepared that months in advance. Like I would think about it. I would see it happening. I would hear the applause as I was leaving the stage. I'd hear people saying, oh, that was great. Yay. I would hear them laughing at the points that I wanted them to laugh at, so that, I was totally prepared by the time I got on that stage. I had done this so many times physically and mentally that I was ready. And it could have been disastrous, but it wasn't. Because if I just went in there like I know how to do this, and I went in and I did it, it probably might have been disastrous. Because the nerves would have overtaken. I And I love what you said about butterflies, because I tell people the same thing. You take that energy and you make it positive. It's like, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. You know,
Sure.
I'm not anxious, I'm excited. I'm anticipating this. I'm eager for this, instead of using those negative terms. So yeah, I love that. We're very in sync with that. And so the practicing, the discipline of doing it, and having that personal initiative to actually get up and do it. What makes you so consistent?
That's a great question. What makes me consistent? So if we had to go back to the root of it, I had to give credit to my parents. My mother's an educator, and she was very big on discipline. Just big on do your homework every day, do your chores, no going outside on school days, that kind of stuff. So when I got into sports, I just took that same discipline. Let me just go to the basketball court every day and practice, see if I can get better. So I had to give credit to them because I couldn't have gotten that from anywhere else, so maybe some is my personal wiring, but I would have to give credit to my parents for that. And then when it comes to just every day now as an adult, I tell people that the consistency is a byproduct of discipline, and discipline is a byproduct of structure. So when the structure is in place, you will be disciplined. And when you're disciplined, you'll be consistent. So a lot of people, I get a lot of people asking me questions about consistency and discipline. I get that question all the time, almost every day. And people say, well, hey, Dre, I'll ask them, well, what are you going to do to fix your challenge, whatever it is? They say, well, I got to be more consistent. I got to be more disciplined. The thing is, you can't force feed yourself discipline. It doesn't work. A lot of people try that. They try to make themselves be disciplined, and it never works. And this is why they're saying, I got to be more disciplined. Well, that's because you're not it right now. That's the reason why it's not working. So what you need to do is put the structure in place. And when you have the right structure, the discipline automatically happens. So my mother, for example, she was all about discipline. And because she was so strict, the discipline in me automatically happened because she was the provider of the structure.
Right. She had the structure for you.
Right. She put the structure in place, and I became disciplined because I had to follow her lead or whatever she was saying to do. I mean,
whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, exactly. My dad was there too, but she was in charge. My mom was in charge. Right. So she provided the structure that led to me and my sister as well being disciplined. So for me these days, the biggest thing I'm always looking for, anytime I'm trying to be more consistent or disciplined in anything, I'm like, how do I put a structure in place to make this work? What structure do I need that will produce the discipline? So you basically reverse engineer it. So for me, the biggest thing about consistency, several things, is that part right there, is that I understand that the formula, which is structure. A lot of people don't get the structure part. They got the discipline part, but they don't know what to do with it. And then the other thing for me is I realized this as an athlete. Growing up in Philadelphia, I wasn't playing in the indoor gyms. I never had a personal trainer, none of that. I was playing outdoors on a blacktop. And in the summertime in Philly, it's hot. Right? It's 95, 100 degrees. And for most people, it was too hot to play basketball. I realized that was my opportunity, because I'm like, all right, all the other kids in the neighborhood are better than me. How am I going to catch up to them if I'm playing the same amount that they play? Because if I come out at 6 in the evening when everybody else comes out, then we're all getting better at the same pace. This is just my 14-year-old logic. So what can I do that they're not doing that gives me an edge so I can catch up? Because at that point, they were all ahead of me. So I said, all right, nobody comes outside at 12 in the afternoon because it's too hot. So why not just come outside at 12 in the afternoon every day? And I got like 3 hours to myself. Nobody can bother me. I can practice. I can get better. And that's what I did. That's how I got good at basketball, just going out by myself and practicing. And I had no facility, no trainer, no nothing. And that discipline, that consistency is what helped me get good. So when that worked for me as a 14-year-old, I just kept applying that to everything else I did in the rest of my life. Like, what can I do that everybody else is not doing? Nobody else.
What am I doing that nobody else is doing? That's big.
Right. And I said, all right, nobody else is calling basketball agents trying to get signed as to have an agent to represent them. Nobody else is going to rent a car and drive from Philly to Orlando on their last $250 to try to get on overseas. Nobody else is putting a video on YouTube every single day. All right. Nobody else is writing an article every single day. These are all things that I've done. Nobody else is making a video, reaching out to somebody. Hey, can I be on your podcast? All right. I'm still doing it to this very day. All right,
you're still doing
it. I'm still doing now.
Yep.
Right. These are not secrets. It's just people don't have the discipline to do the work.
Yeah. People aren't consistent with it. They don't have the discipline because they don't have the structure for it. I love that. And another part of that too, just to add the mindset piece to that, is when you see yourself as the thing, then you will do the thing. So for instance, if, and I read this in what is it? Atomic Habits, James Clear's book, where he talks about you have to see yourself as a healthy person. And then what does a healthy person do? You do the habits of a healthy person. And that's how you create that consistency with it. And I guess you create the structure around it, but you have to also have a self-image of being that in order to start doing the things that need to be that you need to do. So you won't lay in your bed and say, oh, I don't want to do that today, because that's not what that person that you have in your mind, in the vision in your mind, would do. That person would get up and do what needs to be done. So it's also part mindset, visualizing who you need to be, and then also all that other stuff you said, all that great stuff you said.
Skill set, putting the pieces in place. Because if you say, hey, I'm a person who works out every day, but you don't work out every day, you don't know what to do in the gym. Well, what does a person who doesn't know what to do, who's serious about working out, do? They go hire a trainer.
Right? Exactly.
Are you go take the steps?
Precisely. Absolutely. So you're a prolific writer, 33 books. Did that come out of the writing an article every day, and then you decided to put them themes together in the books?
You could say that's one of the sources was that I wrote every day. And then self-publishing became ubiquitous. So many of my books are self-published. I got some that have been traditionally, and most of them are self-published. Nice. Right. So I could do that on my own. So I could put out as many books as I wanted. Then there was on YouTube, because I'm making the videos, and I realized something, that a YouTube video is old after like a week. Right. But a book's never old. Like nobody ever says when this book come out. Like, nobody ever asked that.
Nobody ever asked.
Right. You send somebody a link to a YouTube video, they're like, oh, this is an old video. Can you make a new one? But you send somebody a book, they don't ask when it came out. I don't know why that is, but that's just what it is. So books are more timeless than content. Even though I create a ton of content, books last longer. So that's another reason why I write books.
Is that what was your major in college?
Business with a focus in management and marketing.
No wonder. There you go. It's no wonder.
I didn't learn any of this in college.
I know, but you had a mind for business. You thought about business from college. So it's not whether or not you learn this stuff in college, because a lot of times what we're doing now, we never learned in college. But it's that you had that mindset for business, for entrepreneurship, for finding unique ways to do things. So business and marketing, you always had an interest in that. So it's cool. So I want to transition a little bit now, because I think what you've shared has been so helpful, especially in sharing it through your story. But I want to jump into our rapid fire, because I think this is going to be fun, and I think you can give us so many more juicy nuggets from this. So my first question in this rapid fire is, what's the biggest leadership mistake you ever made or was a victim of?
The biggest leadership mistake I've ever made is not firing somebody when I knew they needed to get fired. I've made that mistake more than once.
Yeah. And how do you how have you rectified that situation? Like, you keep giving people chances.
Yeah, I was talking myself into, well, damn, if I fire them now, I won't have a person there. Now I got to go hire somebody else, and I got to go through this whole process again, and maybe they'll get better. Maybe it's not that bad. I basically talked myself out of a decision I knew I needed to make. So how do I rectify it? Is these days, if I get an inkling that somebody needs to get fired, they're fired.
Oh, so you better shape up. Okay. What's the best advice that you ever got that you still implement today?
Oh, great question. 2005, I was playing pickup basketball at LA Fitness in Andorra in Philadelphia. And this dude he's probably about 35. I was maybe 20. I was 23 at the time. He came up to me. I know this is rapid fire, but I want to tell the story. He came up to me in the locker room after we got done playing. He said, Dre, I never knew this guy. He'd never met me before. We had just played basketball. He said, Dre, I don't know you, but I just played with you today. You got game, clearly, but I got to tell you something that I know I'm not the first person to tell you this. He said, Dre, you got game, but you coast. Sometimes you coast through the games. You're not playing hard. You're kind of going off talent, and you're smooth, and you got a lot of ability. You could do things that most of the guys in there can't do, but you got to stop coasting. You can't take your foot off the gas in the middle of the game. And this dude did not know me from anywhere, but he
picked
sized
that
me up
up
perfectly. He was 100% accurate because my
Mm-hmm.
coaches in college had the same issue with me at times, and he was 100% correct. So I still remember that. I got it written down. I still have that to this very day. I never saw that dude before. I haven't seen him since.
Wow.
But he was 100% correct.
Wow. So be careful when you're coasting.
Yeah.
Listen, I know you've already answered this question, so I might just skip it. I'm going to say the question anyway, but you've answered it in several different ways already. I was going to ask, what's the most Jedi audacious leadership move you've ever made that was so out of the box, but it worked? And your whole career has been Jedi. So everything we've talked about till now has been kind of Jedi
Yes.
and out of the box.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
So next question is, if you were cast away on a deserted island, what 3 things would you hope washed up ashore or was airdropped to you? And one could not be a cell phone. So what could you not live without that you hope would wash up on the shore?
Number one, a boat. So I can get off the island. Number one, I need a boat. That's what I want to wash up on the shore. So give me a boat. Number one, I don't need a cell phone. No. What am I going to call? What are we going to talk about?
Right.
I need a boat. I need some food. So a package of food so I can survive, or maybe water, food and water. And the third thing, if this counts as a separate item, I need something to steer the boat with. So I can paddle, an oar. Yeah.
Give me
That's
an
all
oar.
I need. I need to get back to civilization.
Give me a boat.
Yeah.
Who's someone that inspires you every day?
Every day? My son inspires me. He's only 1 year old, so
nice.
I love
Congrats.
seeing him become. Thank you. I love seeing him go from being just this blob that does nothing to he's becoming a little person. So he's 13 months now. He's he's a person. You can see his personality starting to show. So I'll say him, and I'll cheat and give you another person that is maybe somebody I would look at is Michael Jordan. I like Michael Jordan, and not just because of his play on the court, obviously, but just the mentality, the mindset that I feel like a lot of even athletes these days do not have. This it's just the mental toughness and the resolve that I'm going to show up every night and be the best player in the world because the people are depending on me to be that guy. And I don't see that in today's athletes. So Michael Jordan, I would give as the other answer.
Okay, because you could give him for the next answer, but we'll keep that one there. This next question is, if you could choose one person, real or fictional, alive or past, who would you want to sit and break bread with?
That's a great question. Michael would be one. I'll cheat and give you a few. Michael Jordan be one. Jay-Z would be another. 50 Cent would be another. And not because of their music. I'm not a musician. I mean, I like their music. I'm not in the music.
But their business. Their business acumen.
Business acumen, their mindsets, and the mindset behind what they did. And one more, Puff Daddy, another guy. Just the mindset behind what they did business-wise, not just.
So maybe we'll have a round table with all these guys and you.
Yeah, all 5 of us. That's right.
There you go. So what are you reading right now? Or you can give me your 3 top favorite titles of books that you've read.
I'm usually reading like 2 to 5 books at a time. So I'll tell you all that I'm reading right now. So one is My Life and My Work. That's Henry Ford's autobiography. Another is, what is it? It's New Principles for a Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. There's this book called Lynchpin by Russell Brunson. He's the ClickFunnels guy. And he's just talking about how to put continuity in your programs. Then I'm reading Dan Kennedy, who's an old marketing guy. He put out a book. He used to send a fax because he famously never used email or phone. So he would send a fax to people in his membership. He took all the faxes and put them into a book, like 10 years worth of faxes. So I'm in the middle of reading that book, and is an amazing book. Dan Kennedy is one of my favorites. So those are everything I'm reading right now.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I thank you so much. This has been phenomenal. I love this content. And like I said before we started all of this, that my son is an avid basketball player, wants to play professionally as well. So I know he's going to be watching this. And I thank you so much for sharing so many amazing principles that whether you're an athlete or you're in business or just for life in general, these will help you succeed and build confidence and lead yourself. If you can listen to these. So take notes, go back and listen to this again. I love it. Any last words that you want to share with our audience before I close?
Sure. For everyone to understand, the reason why we call it work on your game is because everybody has a game, whether you're a lawyer, a maintenance man, a librarian, athlete, podcaster, entrepreneur, anything in between. We all have a game. You need to understand what game you are in, what game you're really in. Then you develop your skills so that you have an opportunity to play in the game. And when you play, you must perform. You perform, you produce results. You produce results, you get rewards. And when you get rewards, you get to call your own shot. And then you watch, rinse, and repeat and do it all over again.
Love it. Thank you so much, Dre. I appreciate your time today. And for all of you out there, I want to encourage you to lead yourself, lead your teams, and lead your organization with audacious confidence. Until next time, I'm Alicia Curry, and I'll see you on the next episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. Bye, everybody.